The emergency signal cut through space like a scream. Ji-won Kim heard it first, sitting at her communications station on Earth's orbital command. She had been watching the usual traffic cargo ships, passenger vessels, the boring routine of a Tuesday afternoon shift. Then every alarm on her console lit up at once. "Captain Park, you need to hear this," she said. Her voice tight. Hyun-woo Park crossed the command deck in 3 quick steps. He was tall for a Korean man, with gray beginning to show at his temples. 2 years commanding Earth's orbital defense had given him worry lines around his eyes. He leaned over Ji-won's shoulder and listened. The voice was translated by their computer, but the terror needed no translation. It was high-pitched, buzzing a Veltari speaker. Unknown vessels in orbit. Weapons beyond our classification systems. Requesting immediate assistance from any Galactic Council forces. "We are dying. Please. We are dying." Then static. Then nothing. Hyun-woo felt his stomach drop. The Veltari were insect-like aliens, peaceful traders who had been part of the Galactic Council for 300 years. Earth had only joined 2 years ago, and the Council still treated humans like dangerous children. Humans came from what the galaxy called a death world, a planet so hostile that the creatures who evolved there were considered terrifying by most standards. "Where's Veltara from here?" Hyun-woo asked. G1 single quotes, S-fingers flew across her console. 12 days at standard council speed, sir." "And at our speeds?" She hesitated. 3 days if we push the gravity drives hard." Hyun-woo straightened up. He knew what he should do. He should report this to Earth's government. They would contact the Galactic Council. The Council would debate. They would form committees. They would send a fleet eventually, following all proper procedures. By then, every Veltari on that planet would be dead. "Get me Admiral Lee," he said quietly. So-min Lee appeared on the view screen 3 minutes later. She commanded from the carrier Soul's Pride, currently in high orbit running training exercises. She was older than Hyun-woo, with short hair and a scar across her left cheek from the Mars Rebellion 15 years ago. "Captain Park, I heard the signal." "What are you thinking?" "I'm thinking that someone just asked for help, ma'am." So-min smiled, that there was no humor in it. "And I'm thinking the council is going to take at least 12 days to respond." "Probably longer." "Yes, ma'am." "You understand what you're asking me to do?" Hyun-woo nodded. "I'm asking you to violate our agreement with the council. We're not supposed to leave Earth's solar system with military vessels. They'll accuse us of warmongering. Maybe expel us from the council entirely." "But someone called for help," So-min said softly. "Yes, ma'am." Someone called for help. So-min was quiet for 5 long seconds. Then she nodded once, sharp and decisive. "The Battle Group 7 will break orbit in 1 hour. I'm authorizing you to join us with Orbital Command's Ready Squadron." "Thank you, Admiral." "Don't thank me yet, Captain. We might be starting a war." 1 hour later, the greatest human battle fleet ever assembled in one place began moving. 3 massive carriers, Soul's Pride, Bison's Fury, and Incheon Rising. 12 destroyers, lean and fast. 4 assault frigates, their hulls painted flat black for stealth operations. Inside those ships, 2,000 human soldiers checked their weapons and wondered what they were flying toward. Minho Choi stood on the bridge of the destroyer, indomitable, and watched Earth shrink in the view screen. He was young for a ship commander, only 32, but he had earned his position during the Jupiter Station crisis. Now he wondered if he had made a terrible mistake volunteering for this mission. "All ships report ready," his executive officer said. Minho took a deep breath. "Take us out. Follow Soul's Pride." The fleet moved together, a school of deadly fish swimming through the black ocean of space. As they cleared Earth's moon, Admiral Lee's voice came over the fleet-wide channel. "All ships, this is Admiral Lee. You all heard the distress call from Veltara. You all volunteered to respond. The Galactic Council has not authorized this mission. Earth's government has not officially approved it. We are, by the rules of the Council, acting as rogue military units. Minho could hear the tension in the Admiral's voice, but also something else. Pride, maybe. Or determination. But here's what I know, Lee continued. Someone called for help. They're dying. And every second we waste in debate is another second they suffer. So we're going to Veltara, and we're going to save them. Then we'll deal with whatever consequences come after. Because that's what humans do. That's who we are. Lee out. The gravity drives engaged. This was human technology, built from theories that Council scientists said were recklessly dangerous. Instead of slowly accelerating like Council ships, human vessels bent space itself, falling forward through artificial gravity walls at speeds that made other species' engineers wake up screaming. The ships began to shake. Minho felt the vibration through the deck plates, felt his inner ear protest as gravity did strange things. On the view screen, stars stretched into lines. 3 days. They had 3 days to prepare for whatever they would find. 3 days to train. 3 days to say goodbye to the people they loved through messages that would take weeks to reach home. On the assault frigate Typhoon, Captain Yoonji Han gathered her Marine detachment. Sergeant Taiyang Quan stood at attention with the others, his combat armor mag-locked to his back. We don't know what we're flying into, Yoonji said bluntly. She was short, muscular, with a burn scar on her right hand from a training accident. Could be raiders. Could be a full military assault. Could be something we've never seen before. Taiyang listened carefully. He had been a Marine for 6 years, ever since he left Bizan looking for adventure. He had found it, though not always the kind he wanted. We train hard for the next 3 days, Yoonji continued. Boarding actions. Urban combat. Zero-gravity assault. And most importantly, we train to keep fighting when we're tired, scared, and everything hurts. Because that's when real combat happens. Understood? Yes, ma'am. 200 voices shouted as one dot in her medical bay. Dr. Sujin organized her supplies. She had treated combat injuries before, but never in a real battle. Never when lives would depend on her speed and skill. She checked her surgical equipment 3 times, making sure everything was secured for high-gravity maneuvers. The fleet rushed through space at impossible speeds. And aboard every ship, humans prepared for war. They didn't know if they would live or die. They didn't know if Earth would support them or disavow them. They only knew that somewhere ahead, people were dying, and humans had answered the call. The Veltari were dying, and they knew it. Speaker Calvin crouched in the underground shelter with 6,000 of his people pressed around him. The walls shook with another impact from orbit. Dust fell from the ceiling. Somewhere in the back of the shelter, young ones were crying, a high-pitched keening that hurt his hearts. How long until Council forces arrive? Someone asked in the darkness. Kelvin checked his data tablet with trembling hands. 9 days. Maybe 10. 9 days. They had perhaps 2 days of air left in these shelters. The orbital stations were gone, destroyed in the first hours of the attack. The enemy, these Krell things, all tentacles and rage, had appeared without warning. 47 warships against Voltara's 3 defense platforms. It had not been a battle. It had been an execution. We will die down here, another voice said flatly. Kelvin had no answer. Mathematics was his specialty. He could calculate orbital mechanics, probability distributions, quantum fluctuations. But he could not calculate hope where none existed. Above him, in orbit, the Krell fleet commander was learning something interesting about humans. The message had just arrived, sent by a Krell scout ship 3 systems away. Commander, We detected a large fleet entering this sector. Unknown configuration. High-speed approach. The Krell commander, a massive creature of tentacles and bioarmor, dismissed the report with a gesture. Council forces. They will arrive in time to recover bodies and file reports. Continue bombardment. But the scout ship sent another message 2 hours later. Commander, revised estimates. The fleet will arrive in 30 hours. This is not possible at Council speeds. The commander felt something unfamiliar, uncertainty. Show me. The tactical display lit up with projected approach vectors. The scout ship was correct. Whatever fleet was coming, it was moving at speeds that violated Council regulations. More than that, speeds that violated known physics. Identify, the commander ordered. Unknown, Commander. Ship configurations do not match Council databases. Energy signatures are strange. High-output gravity drives of a type we've never seen. 30 hours. The Krell commander had expected weeks before any response. This changed things, but not enough. His fleet was strong. Whoever was coming, they would arrive to find Veltara already broken. Then they would see Krell strength and retreat, or they would fight and die. The Krell had never lost a siege. Aboard Soul's Pride, Admiral Soman Lee stared at the tactical display and felt cold anger building in her chest. They had come out of their final gravity jump at the edge of the Veltara system. Sensors were painting a picture of horror. 47 enemy vessels in orbit, reported Commander Jinwoo Nam from the tactical station. Detecting multiple impact sites on the surface. Atmosphere is venting from 6 major breaches. The orbital stations are gone, ma'am. Just debris. Soman clenched her fists. They were too late to prevent the attack, but perhaps not too late to save the survivors. Enemy fleet composition? Heavy cruisers, battleships, and support vessels. They outmass us approximately 2-to-1. Around the command deck, Soman saw her crew exchanging glances. 2-to-1 odds were not good, but humans had never particularly cared about good odds. All ships, this is Admiral Lee. We go in at maximum combat speed. Show them humans don't ask permission before saving lives. Weapons free on my command. On the Indomitable, Minho Choi gripped the arms of his command chair as his destroyer accelerated. The inertial dampeners were straining. He felt the gray edges of vision that came from high gravity forces. Around him, his crew grunted and held on. Target lock on 3 enemy cruisers, his weapons officer reported through gritted teeth. Hold until the Admiral's signal, Minho ordered. The human fleet crossed the distance at speeds that made the Krell sensors think they were malfunctioning. 4 minutes from system edge to combat range. Council ships would have taken 30. Soman watched the range counter drop. 300,000 kilometers. 200,000. 100,000. All ships, engage. The human fleet opened fire, and the Krell learned what terror felt like. The first 6 Krell cruisers simply ceased to exist. Railgun rounds. Tungsten penetrators moving at nearly the speed of light hit with the force of nuclear weapons. Shields that had never failed before shattered like glass. Armor that had turned aside Council plasma fire vaporized. Report. The Krell commander roared. 6 vessels destroyed. No warning. Weapon signatures unknown. These are not Council weapons. The Krell fleet tried to respond, but the human ships were already moving. They didn't hold formation like civilized species. They scattered, each ship choosing its own attack vector, moving independently like predators hunting in a pack. Minho's Indomitable dove toward Veltara's moon, using it for a gravitational slingshot. The maneuver pulled 8 gravities. His crew's vision grayed out. 1 ensign passed out at her station. But they came around the moon at incredible speed and raked 3 Krell battleships with plasma fire before the enemy could rotate their weapons. "Hit them again," Menho shouted. "Don't give them time to think." From Seoul's Pride, 200 human fighters launched. Lieutenant Han Yun led her squadron in a dive that would kill most species. Humans could tolerate 9 gravities. She pulled 12, just for a few seconds, because it gave her squadron the angle they needed. "Target their engines," she transmitted to her wing. "Make them burn." The fighters swarmed over a Krell flagship, their small plasma cannons focusing fire on the massive ship's drive section. The Krell point defense tried to track them, but human pilots moved in 3 dimensions simultaneously, rolling and jinking in patterns that defied prediction. One of Hyun's wingmen, Ki Woo-shin, got too close to a Krell weapon cluster. His fighter took a direct hit. The explosion was brief and bright. Hound felt her throat close with grief, but there was no time. There was never time in combat. "Reform on me," she ordered. "We've got more work to do." The Krell commander watched his orderly siege falling apart. These unknown ships fought like nothing in his experience. They were too fast, too aggressive, too willing to take damage while pressing attacks. 2 more of his cruisers exploded. A battleship lost power and began drifting. "Who are they?" he demanded. His tactical officer checked and rechecked the data. "Commander, I'm detecting biological signatures aboard the unknown vessels. Carbon-based, oxygen-breathing. The ships are broadcasting identification codes now. They claim to be human, from a world called Earth." The Krell commander accessed his species database. Earth, Deathworld classification. Species considered dangerous by Council standards. Aggressive, persistent, and new to space. Barely 2 years in the Council, these were humans. The galaxy's newest species. And they were destroying his fleet. "All ships, focus fire on the large carriers," he ordered. "Kill their command vessels." But Captain Yoon Ji-han had other plans. Her assault frigate Typhoon suddenly burned straight toward the Krell flagship, absorbing terrible damage. Plasma fire raked her hull. Armor melted. Half her crew died in the first 30 seconds of the approach. "Captain, we can't survive this," her executive officer screamed. "We don't have to survive," Yoonji said calmly, blood running from her nose from a concussion. "We just have to get close enough." The Typhoon's hull groaned under the assault, but Yoonji kept her ship aimed like an arrow at the Krell flagship's flank. When they were 2 kilometers away, she gave the order. "Sergeant Kwan, you're up. Go save some people." In the Typhoon's lower decks, Taiyang Kwan and his Marines were already in their boarding pods. The impact of enemy fire shook them like dice in a cup, but they held on. When Yoonji gave the order, Taiyang slapped the launch button. 12 boarding pods shot out from the dying frigate. They crossed 2 kilometers in 8 seconds and struck the Krell flagship's hull with impacts that would kill most species. Humans just grunted against their restraints and grabbed their weapons. Taiyang's pod breached through the Krell hull. The cutting charges melted armor. His pod's hatch blew open, and he dove into the enemy ship with 30 Marines behind him. The Krell inside. The flagship had never experienced boarding combat. It was ancient history, something species hadn't done for centuries. But humans remembered. Humans had been boarding enemy vessels since wooden ships sailed Earth's oceans. Taiyang's rifle barked in the confined corridors. Krell defenders fell back, confused and terrified. These creatures moved too fast, fought too hard, seemed impossible to stop. "Push forward!" Taiyang roared. "Find their command center!" The battle was 3 hours of sustained horror done when it finally ended. 31 Krell ships were destroyed. 16 were captured or disabled. The Krell commander evacuated his dying flagship and retreated with what remained of his fleet, but the Typhoon was a drifting wreck. The Indomitable had lost half its port side to radiation weapons. 743 humans were dead. Another 300 were wounded. Below them, on Veltara, Speaker Kelvin emerged from his shelter to see human ships in orbit. He did not understand. The Council forces were not due for 9 more days. Who had come? Who had saved them? He would learn soon enough. Humans had arrived, and the galaxy would never be the same. Speaker Kelvin stood in the ruins of his city and tried to understand what he was seeing. The sky above Veltara glowed with the light of fires still burning in orbit Krell ships torn apart, their debris forming temporary meteor showers as fragments fell through the atmosphere. But between those dying fires, he could see new shapes. Strange vessels holding position. Ships he had never seen before. Those are not Council designs, his aide whispered beside him. Kelvin activated his communicator with trembling hands. This is Speaker Kelvin of Veltara. Who has come to our aid? The response came in passable Veltari, though the accent was strange. Speaker, this is Admiral Soman Lee of the Earth Defense Force. We received your distress call. We came as quickly as we could. Earth. Kelvin searched his memory. Yes, Earth. The newest Council members. The ones from the classified Deathworld. The species other races whispered about nervously at Council gatherings. But they had come? Why? We did not request aid from Earth specifically, Kelvin said, confused. We broadcast to all Council forces. We know, Admiral Lee replied. But we were the ones who answered. Within 6 hours, human Marines were landing on Veltara's surface. Kelvin watched them emerge from their dropship's bipedal creatures, smaller than he expected, encased in armor that looked crude compared to Council technology. But they moved with efficiency that spoke of long practice. Sergeant Taiyang Quan approached Kelvin, his helmet retracting to show his face. He had dark eyes and a severe expression. Speaker, we're here to establish a defensive perimeter. Do you have a list of critical infrastructure that needs protection? Kelvin found himself nodding, pulling up data on his tablet. But he kept staring at this young human. You fought the Krell fleet? Yes, sir. We won't let them come back. How many of you died? Taiyang's expression didn't change, but something flickered in his eyes. 743, sir. With 300 wounded. Kelvin's legs nearly gave out. In Veltari culture, such losses would be considered catastrophic, unacceptable. An entire war might produce fewer casualties. So many? For people you do not know? Someone called for help, Taiyang said simply. We answered. The human Marines spread out across the city, setting up defensive positions and distributing emergency supplies. Medical teams followed, led by a human doctor named Sujin Oh. She wore no armor, just medical whites. And she moved through the Veltari wounded with practiced calm. I've never treated your species before, she admitted to a Veltari physician named Keltar. You'll need to guide me. They worked together through the day and into the night. Sujin learned that Veltari had 3 hearts instead of 1, that their blood was copper-based and turned blue when oxygenated, that their nervous system was distributed rather than centralized. Keltar, in turn, learned that humans could work for 16 hours straight without rest, that they possessed remarkable fine motor control, and that they seemed to feel genuine distress at seeing others in pain. Why do you care? Keltar asked as they worked on a particularly difficult case, a young Veltari with severe crush injuries. We are not your people. Sujin looked up from her work, surprised. Does that matter? They are hurt. We can help. That's enough. On the 3rd day after the battle, a council delegation arrived on Veltara. Admiral Soman Lee met them in what remained of the Planetary Council building. The delegates were a mix of species, a tall Tavian, a floating Meshki, and several others. They did not look pleased. Admiral Lee, the Tavian began formally. The Galactic Council has convened an emergency session to address Earth's actions. You violated the treaty restrictions on Earth's military movements. You engaged in unauthorized combat operations. You destroyed a fleet belonging to the Krell Dominion, who are not formally hostile to Council interests. Soman listened without expression. Is there a question, Delegate? The Council demands an explanation. Why did Earth act without authorization? Because people were dying, Soman said quietly. An authorization would have taken 12 days. How many Veltari would have survived 12 days? The Tavian delegate shifted uncomfortably. That is not relevant. Protocols exist for reasons. You have demonstrated that Earth can project military force across dozens of light years. You have shown yourselves capable of destroying major fleets. This makes many council members nervous. I see, someone said. So you're afraid of us? We are concerned about stability. Soman stood, her chair scraping against the floor. Let me be clear, Delegate. The Veltari called for help. They were dying. Earth chose to respond immediately rather than wait for committees to debate and forms to be filed. If the Council considers that a crime, then we are guilty. But we saved 60 million lives. I will not apologize for that. The meeting ended badly. The Council delegation left with stern warnings about sanctions, censure, possibly even expulsion from the Council. On their shuttle back to orbit, the delegates debated humanity's fate. But that evening, Speaker Kelvin requested an audience with Admiral Lee. They met in the ruined council chamber, under a ceiling partially open to the stars. Your council is angry with you, Kelvin observed. Yes. You will face punishment for saving us, probably. Kelvin's mandibles clicked together in the Veltari expression of distress. I do not understand your species. This makes no mathematical sense. You risk your political standing. You lost 700 of your own. You may face sanctions or worse. Why? Soman walked to the broken wall and looked out over the city. Human and Veltari workers were clearing rubble together. My species has a concept called doing the right thing. It means acting according to your principles, even when it costs you. Even when it would be safer or easier to do nothing. This is not logical. No, Soman agreed. But it's human. Kelvin was quiet for a long moment. The Council debates your fate tomorrow. They will discuss what punishment Earth deserves for saving us. This is obscene. It's politics, Soman said. We expected it. Admiral Lee, may I attend this council session? Soman turned surprised. You want to testify? Yes, someone must speak the truth. The next day, the Galactic Council convened in its grand chamber, a massive space station that served as the Council's seat of power. Representatives from 83 species gathered to debate Earth's fate. Ambassador Jion-Ru stood alone in the center of the chamber. Representing humanity. She was a career diplomat, skilled at navigating council politics. But even she looked worried as species after species stood to condemn Earth's actions. The charges were many. Unauthorized military movement, violation of treaty terms, excessive use of force, destabilization of regional security. Earth must be censured, declared a Rothian representative. They have shown they cannot be trusted to follow council law. Earth should have its military capabilities restricted, added a Meshki delegate. Their technology is too dangerous to remain unregulated. For 3 hours, they debated. Jian defended Earth's actions as best she could, arguing necessity and humanitarian imperative. But the political calculus was against her. Too many species were frightened by what humanity had demonstrated. Better to leash the humans now before they became a threat. Then Speaker Kelvin's request to address the council was granted. He entered the chamber slowly, his insectoid form moving carefully on legs, still recovering from injuries. The chamber fell silent. Everyone knew who he was, the leader of the species that had just been saved. "Honored Council," Calvin began, his translator rendering his clicks and whistles into Galactic Standard. "I have listened to 3 hours of debate about Earth's crimes. I have heard much about protocols, regulations, and proper procedures. What I have not heard is a single word of gratitude for the 60 million Veltari who still live." The chamber remained silent. "My people called for help," Kelvin continued. "We broadcast our distress on all frequencies. We begged for assistance. The Council response fleet was scheduled to arrive 12 days after our call. In 12 days, every Veltari would have been dead. Earth arrived in 3 days." He turned slowly, his compound eyes taking in the assembled delegates. "I have studied human culture since they saved us. They have a saying, actions speak louder than words. The Council speaks much of cooperation and mutual aid. Earth acts on it. While you debated, humans died to save us. 743 of them. I know their names. Every Veltari knows their names." A Tavian delegate stood. "This is not about gratitude. This is about order and law." "Then your laws are broken," Kelvin said flatly. "My people were dying while your laws required we wait for death. If this is what civilized species call order, then I pray someone show such disorder whenever you need help." He turned back to face the chamber's center. "The Council may punish Earth. That is your right. But know that Veltara remembers who came when we called. Remember who answered while you debated. History will judge which was more important, following protocols or saving lives." Kelvin left the chamber. The debate continued for another hour, but the certainty had drained from it. No resolution was reached. Earth's status remained in question, but the push for immediate sanctions had lost its momentum. That night, Jian received 23 private messages from Council species. They all said variations of the same thing. "If we ever need help, will humans answer?" The galaxy was learning something new about these Deathworlders from Earth. They were dangerous, yes. But Captain Hyanwu Park stood in the medical bay of Soul's Pride and watched Sujin O work. She was treating a human marine with severe burns, her hands steady despite having worked for 32 hours straight. The marine, a young man named Dong-hoon, gritted his teeth as she cleaned the wounds. "Almost done," Sujin murmured. "You're doing great. Will I be able to go back on duty?" Dong-hoon asked. "In about 3 weeks. For now, you rest." After she finished and moved to the next patient, Hyanwu followed her. "Doctor, when did you last sleep? What day is it?" "That's not reassuring." Sujin smiled tiredly. "I'll sleep when everyone's stable. We lost too many already." Her smile faded. 743. I keep thinking about that number. People I might have saved if I'd been faster. Better. Hyanwu put a hand on her shoulder. You saved hundreds. Don't forget that. But he understood her pain. As captain, he had sent those people into battle. Some had been barely 20 years old. Kids from Seoul, Bizen, Daegu, from cities across Earth. They had volunteered to help strangers, and they had died light years from home. Across the fleet, others struggled with the same weight. Lieutenant Han Yun sat in the fighter bay of Soul's Pride, staring at 15 empty launch slots. 15 pilots from her squadron who would never return. She could still hear Ki Wuxin's last transmission before his fighter exploded, just a grunt of pain, cut short. "Lieutenant?" A voice interrupted her thoughts. She looked up to find a young pilot named Jiho standing nervously nearby. "What is it?" "I wanted to ask, was it worth it? 15 of us dead, for aliens we don't know?" Hound stood and faced him directly. "Come with me." She led into a view screen showing Veltara below. Lights were coming back on across the surface as power was restored. Humans and Veltari worked together in the cities, clearing rubble and rebuilding. See that? Hound said. 60 million people who are alive because we came. 60 million who would be dead if we'd followed procedures and waited. She turned to him. Qi Wuxin died saving them. So did the others. Was it worth it? Ask me if 15 lives matter more than 60 million. Ask me if humans should only help people who look like us. Jiho was quiet for a moment. I didn't mean. I know what you meant. And I'm telling you that every person we lost made a choice. They chose to answer a call for help. That meant something. It still means something. In the carrier's command center, Admiral So-min Lee reviewed casualty reports with a grim expression. 743 dead. 312 wounded. The typhoon was so badly damaged, it would need to be completely rebuilt, assuming Earth's government even allowed that after whatever punishment the Council decided. Admiral? Commander Jinwoo Nam approached hesitantly. We're receiving communications from Earth. They want to know when you're planning to return. What's the tone? Official. Neutral. No indication whether we're being called back for medals or courts-martial. So-min laughed bitterly. Probably the latter. We did violate direct orders. We saved 60 million people. Yes, but we also ignored treaty obligations, started an interstellar incident, and terrified half the species in the Council. Politicians don't care about the Veltari. They care about trade agreements and political relationships. Jinwoo was quiet for a moment. Do you regret it? Not for a second. On Veltara's surface, the relationship between humans and Veltari was growing deeper. Taiyan Quan's Marines trained Veltari security forces in defensive tactics. Dr. Sujin Oh and physician Kelter published research papers on cross-species emergency medicine. Human engineers worked alongside Veltari technicians to rebuild the orbital infrastructure, but the most profound changes were happening in small moments. A Veltari child offering a human marine a piece of fruit from her family's greenhouse. A human soldier carrying an elderly Veltari through rubble-filled streets. Shared meals. Shared stories. Shared grief. Speaker Calvin watched these interactions and marveled. Veltari were logical beings. They cooperated when it made mathematical sense, when mutual benefit could be calculated. But humans seemed to cooperate simply because another being needed help. This was outside Veltari experience. It was outside most species' experience. They are strange creatures. Kelter observed one evening as they watched human marines playing a game with Veltari children. They are so violent, yet so gentle. So powerful, yet so willing to serve. They are paradoxes, Kelvin agreed. Their world shaped them into predators. But they choose to be protectors. 3 weeks after the battle, Ambassador Jian Ru transmitted a message to Admiral Lee. The Council still hasn't decided on sanctions. They're divided. About a third want to expel Earth entirely. Another third want to formally thank us. The rest are just confused. So we're in political limbo, So-min said. Yes, but there's something else you should know. 23 Council species have contacted Earth's government privately. They're asking about mutual defense agreements. Unofficial ones, outside Council frameworks. So-min sat up straighter. They want their own arrangements with Earth? They want to know that if they call for help, humans will come. They don't trust the Council to protect them anymore. But they're starting to trust us. After the transmission ended, So-min sat in her office and thought about what that meant. Earth hadn't been trying to gain influence or build an alliance network. They had simply responded to a distress call. But actions had consequences beyond their immediate effects. By saving Veltara, Earth had demonstrated something the galaxy had not seen in a long time, a willingness to fight for others. Without demanding anything in return, Dade was a reputation that could be valuable. But it was also a burden. If Earth became known as the species that answers distress calls, they would receive many more calls. More battles. More casualties. More names on walls. On her desk was a list. 743 names. Someone read through them slowly, committing each one to memory. Private Minjin Lee, 20 years old. Sergeant Doyan Park, 25. Lieutenant Commander Sora Kim, 32. On and on, names and ages and service records. You died for strangers, she whispered to the list. But you changed something. The galaxy won't forget that. I won't forget that. She authorized a memorial to be built on Veltara. Not a statue of victory, but a wall with every name engraved. Above the names, an inscription in both languages. They came when asked. They died among strangers. They saved a world, not their own. When Speaker Calvin saw the memorial, he stood before it for a long time. Then, he made a decision. Valar would remember. They would teach their young ones about the humans who came. They would honor the names on this wall. And if Earth ever called for help, Veltara would answer without hesitation that it was not a formal treaty. It was something deeper. It was gratitude that transcended politics. Loyalty earned through blood. The galaxy was built on trade agreements and mutual advantage. But humans had introduced something different, something older and stronger. The bond between those who fight together. The debt owed to those who risk everything for strangers. As news of Veltara spread through council space, other species began to wonder. If crisis came to their worlds, who would arrive first, council bureaucracy or human warships? The answer was becoming obvious. Earth's military might had scared the council. But Earth's willingness to use that might for others, that was changing the fundamental power structure of the galaxy. Strength was common enough. Strength combined with self-sacrifice was something new. Hyen Wu Park stood on the observation deck and watched Veltara slowly heal. Light spread across the surface like hope manifesting. Human and Veltari worked side by side. The scars would take years to fully heal. But healing was happening. Was it worth it? Someone asked beside him. He turned to find Ji-Won Kim, who had first detected the distress call. Yes, Hyen Wu said simply. It was worth it. Below them, 60 million Veltari lived because humans had answered a call. Whatever punishment Earth faced, whatever sanctions the Council imposed, that fact remained. 60 million lives saved. 743 given in return. In the mathematics of morality, Hyen Wu thought the equation balanced. More than balanced. They had shown the galaxy what humanity could be. Now they would live with the consequences of that choice. For better or worse, Earth had declared itself a protector. The calls for help would come. They would keep coming. And somewhere in human space, someone would always answer. 6 months after Veltara, Rear Admiral Hyen Wu Park stood in Earth's orbital command, the same station where he had first heard the Veltari distress call. He had been promoted after the battle, though he was not certain if it was a reward or simply moving him into a position where they could watch him more carefully. Earth's government had never officially approved or condemned the Veltara mission. They simply accepted it as a fact and moved on. Politics demanded that approach condemn the mission and lose face with species that now looked to Earth for protection. Approve it openly and antagonize the Council further. So they said nothing official and everything quietly. Admiral Summon Lee's soul's pride was still in orbital dock, her hull being repaired. The scars from Krell weapons would never fully disappear. Lee had refused to have them smoothed away completely. Let people see what we paid, she had said. Let them remember. Ji-Won Kim, now promoted to captain, had her own command, the newly rebuilt destroyer Indomitable. The original had survived the battle but bore too much damage. They had salvaged what they could and built a new ship around the old name. She took her crew through training exercises now, preparing for whatever would come next. Because something would come next. Everyone knew it. The Galactic Council had never resolved Earth's status. The debate had simply stopped. No sanctions were imposed. No thanks were given. Earth existed in a strange political space, technically a council member, but operating outside normal frameworks. Other species watched nervously to see what humans would do next. But while politicians debated, the galaxy's people acted. Veltari merchants now traveled under Earth's informal protection. 6 other council species had approached Earth about quiet defense arrangements, not official treaties, but understandings. If they called for help, would humans come? The answer was always yes. That was becoming Earth's reputation. The Deathworlders, who answered calls. Commander Jinwoo Nam, now serving as Hyunwoo's executive officer, brought him a report. Sir, we've received inquiries from 11 more species this month, all asking about Earth's response protocols. They want to know if we'll save them too, Hyunwoo said. Yes, sir. The council can't protect them, and they know it. So they're asking us. Hyunwoo looked out at Earth below, the blue-green world that had produced a species the galaxy found terrifying. Humans had evolved on a death world where almost everything wanted to kill them. They had learned to be persistent, aggressive, and nearly impossible to stop. But they had also learned something else, the value of protecting your group, of fighting for others, of answering when someone needed help. That instinct, born from human evolution, was now reshaping galactic politics. Not through conquest, through rescue. On Veltara, the relationship between humans and Veltari had deepened into genuine friendship. Lieutenant Taiyang Quan, now Captain Quan after his battlefield promotion, commanded a training facility where humans taught Veltari security forces defensive tactics. The Veltari learned quickly, their mathematical minds adapting human strategies into new forms. Dr. Sujin worked at a joint medical research facility where human and Veltari physicians studied ways to treat both species. Her papers on cross-species emergency medicine were becoming required reading across council space. The galaxy was learning that humans, despite their violent nature, possessed remarkable medical knowledge and compassion for the injured. Speaker Kelvin had become one of Earth's strongest advocates in the council. When species spoke nervously about human military capabilities, he would stand and remind them. Veltara called for help. Only humans answered. While you debated, they died for us. Remember that. The memorial wall stood in Veltara's capital, 743 names carved into stone. Every day, Veltari citizens visited it. They brought flowers, or rather the Veltari equivalent, bioluminescent fungi that glowed in the evening. They brought their children and told stories about the humans who came from beyond the stars. On Earth, in cities across the planet, similar memorials appeared. The names of those who died at Veltara were honored alongside soldiers from earlier conflicts. They had died for strangers, yes, but they had died as humans protecting others, answering calls for help, doing what they believed was right. The Krell Dominion, meanwhile, had withdrawn from 3 systems bordering council space. Intelligence reports said they were reassessing their expansion strategy. Apparently, encountering humans had been educational. The Krell had never lost a siege before Veltara. They had never experienced what it meant to fight opponents who refused to surrender, who kept coming even when hurt, who turned defensive battles into offensive nightmares. Other hostile forces beyond council space were learning similar lessons. Humanity had fought one major battle, but the recordings of that battle had spread across the galaxy. Pirates, raiders, and aggressive species all watched the footage and saw the same thing. Humans were dangerous in ways that went beyond simple military power. They were dangerous because they combined advanced technology with a deathworld predator's instincts and a seemingly insane willingness to sacrifice themselves for others. That combination made them unpredictable. More than that, it made them someone you did not want as an enemy. Lieutenant Han Yun commanded a fighter squadron aboard Seoul's Pride, training the next generation of pilots. She taught them everything: tactics, maneuvers, weapon systems. But she also taught them about the 15 empty slots in her squadron, about Kiwoo Shin and the others who died at Veltara. You'll face a choice someday, she told her new pilots. You'll have orders that say one thing and conscience that says another. When that happens, remember why we're here. We're not here to conquer. We're here to protect. And sometimes protecting people means disobeying orders. It was a dangerous lesson to teach military personnel, but it was a human lesson. Throughout human history, the most honored soldiers were often those who broke rules to do what was right. 6 months after Veltara, the test came. A distress call cut through space. Ji-won Kim heard it first, working late in orbital command. The signal came from Resh Kora, a mining colony on the edge of Council space. Pirates were attacking. Civilian casualties were mounting. The Council response time was 9 days. Ji-won walked to Admiral Park's office. He was still there, reviewing reports. She knocked on the doorframe. "Admiral, we have a distress call from Resh Kora. Pirate raid. They're asking for immediate assistance." Yang-woo looked up. His eyes met hers, and understanding passed between them. This was Veltara again. Another choice. Another chance to follow orders or follow conscience. "Council response time?" he asked, though he already knew. 9 days, sir." Yang-woo stood and walked to his window, looking out at the fleet in orbit. Seoul's Pride was still under repair, but other ships were ready. Battle Group 3, currently running training exercises. 12 ships. 1,000 Marines. Ready to move. He thought about the 743 names on Veltara's wall. He thought about the choice they had made to answer a call from strangers, to risk everything for people they had never met. That choice had changed the galaxy. It had given humanity a reputation as protectors. But reputations came with responsibilities. If Earth became known as the species that answers distress calls, they would receive many calls. More battles. More casualties. More walls with names. Was that acceptable? Could humanity sustain that burden? Yang-woo realized the answer was simple. It had always been simple. "Send orders to Battle Group 3, he said quietly. "They are to proceed to Resh Kora at maximum speed. Engage and destroy any hostile forces. Protect the civilians." Ji-won nodded. "Yes, sir." "Should we request Council authorization first?" "No. Someone call for help. We answer now. We'll deal with the consequences later." Battle Group 3 broke orbit 90 minutes later. 12 ships burning toward Resh Kora at speeds that made Council species nervous. They would arrive in 4 days, 5 days before the Council fleet. And they would do what humans do. They would fight. They would protect. They would save strangers at great cost to themselves. Because that was who humanity was becoming. Not conquerors. Not empire builders. But protectors. The species that answered calls. The Deathworlders who fought not for territory or resources, but because someone needed help. It was a dangerous identity to claim. It meant humans would be called upon again and again. It meant more casualties, more grief, more names on walls. But it also meant something else. It meant that somewhere in the galaxy, beings who were afraid could know that if they called for help, humans would answer. Not for profit, not for political advantage, simply because it was the right thing to do. Admiral Soman Lee, watching Battle Group 3 depart from Seoul's Pride, understood this better than anyone. "We're setting a precedent," she said to herself. "Every time we answer a call, we're telling the galaxy that this is what humans do. This is who we are. Was it sustainable? Could Earth maintain this role indefinitely? Probably not. Eventually, the burden would become too great. Eventually, Earth would have to make harder choices about when and where to intervene. But for now, the choice was clear. Someone had called for help. And in orbital space above Earth, human ships were already accelerating toward them.